I'd like to call tonight's meeting of the Lower County Board of Commissioners to order. If you could all please stand for a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody to the traveling version of the meeting here in the lovely new wing of the community center. Let's see, tonight for the agenda or for the roll call, Ms. Flexer is not with us. Mr. McAdam is joining us by Zoom. Mr. Jones is joining us by Zoom. There are no agenda modifications. There are no announcements and presentations. There are no hearings or approvals. Item 7, public comment on non-agenda topics. Seeing none. Item 8, communication, Mr. Vital.
Thank you. As we discussed with the board at the last meeting, you do have before you the resignation from Miles Zakos from the EAC.
Move to accept the program.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The other item we have, just notification from Sanford Ames from Stound RCN, notification of system upgrades that they're doing to their network.
Okay. We have no appointments to boards, committees, or commissions this evening. Item 10, approval of minutes from previous meetings, September 4th, 2025.
Move to approve.
We have motions or a second? Second. Motion and a second. Are there any commissioner comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Seeing and hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 11, approval of transfers, bill list, and payroll. Mr. Bite.
Thank you. The following, the general fund, $202,896.38. The solid waste fund, $2,613.58. The sewer fund, $108,037.76. Capital projects fund, $116,057.65. The open space fund, $118. The payroll, $181,751.74. Developer escrow, $72,560.99. For a total of all funds, $684,036.10.
Move to approve.
We have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any commissioner comments or questions? Yes, Commissioner Robert.
Just a comment that, glad to see for the first time in a long time, it's under $1 million, so.
Lighten the belt. Gotta like that. Any public comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And as always, for the people at home, for the public at home, our full bill list can be found on our website. Item 12, departmental matters and reports. 12.1.1, review of updated sewer tapping fees and new sewer district.
Yeah, I'll take that. So we'll work through some of these departmental reports in place of our workshop for this month. We'll handle various topics in here. What you have before you in a draft is the update for the tapping fees. We usually do this annually for these. It has a component of engineering review, as well as making sure we're accounting for any other items necessary for the charging of those tapping fees. The other thing I would note is with the extension at Sauerkraut Lane from 100 down towards the new Sauerkraut, there's 10 houses that are in that area that had to go on the map for since there's a line there now. If they choose to tap in at some point, if they have a failure or a future issue, that allows us to appropriately charge them in that district. So that is the adding district 10 to the map. It's blue in nature. So we believe the map has been updated appropriately so that everyone knows where they exist. And those tapping fees, we would be asking the board to consider, in a future meeting, so that we can, hit the ground running for the future components.
Any commissioner questions, comments? Any public questions or comments? Okay, 12.1.2, presentation of zoning ordinance text amendments. Mr. Jones.
Yes, happy to take this one in this very room where you're sitting this evening. The Planning Commission met the other week and we went over the proposed amendments in detail, and they have since recommended the amendments for your consideration. I like to give the little heads up to anybody watching at home or who might be interested in this as we get started just talking about this item. These are administrative text amendments that have to do with the administration and enforcement of our ordinance only. So for anybody who is curious, this does not have anything to do about changing the zoning map or any uses or adding new uses or anything along those items whatsoever. This is purely so we can serve our residents and businesses better when we are trying to, in specific, the Community Development Department and our Township Zoning Officer utilize the zoning ordinance so we can issue permits, issue violations, work with the magistrate should there be a violation, and so on. So the language that has mostly been discussed and we actually have a section that's been added, is so that we can get these nuts and bolts items taken care of and get our team working with a tool for the zoning ordinance as best possible. And I'll just run through everything again for the board's benefit. This has obviously been made available to you. If you have any questions after I go over the presentation briefly, I'm happy to answer them. And then, of course, anytime you want to reach out to me, phone, email, I will be in the office next Monday and Tuesday. We can definitely sit down and meet. I'd like to be able to cover any questions that you have, answer anything. But it broken down very simply. We have an existing savings clause in our zoning ordinance. It was the wise recommendation of our Township Zoning Officer, Chris, to add to that where a use is not proposed, it would be considered as a conditional use because new uses are coming up all the time. 15 years ago, we probably wouldn't be talking about some of the things that are now considered uses that are in need of regulation, that have taken interest at the state, local, regional level. So this kind of covers the township so that should a use not be listed in the zoning ordinance or provided for, then it would be considered a conditional use that would need to come before the board. So that was one of the first changes that we made in the savings clause, section 27-108. The next section is really has to do with the conditional use procedures. And essentially in working with the Township Solicitor's Office, speaking with the department director, Mr. Tranguch, and Mr. Russo, we all determined that the best course of action as we process the number of conditional uses that we do is to try and do it with as close adherence as possible to the MPC. So we just have some language in there that does take it in that route and also helps us from an administrative end. The language that we currently have requires someone to submit a conditional use and their preliminary final plan. And we are now looking at a linear and proposing a linear process because it'll save applicants time and money. And it'll also save the township time and money by reviewing a conditional use first, because the Planning Commission and the board can make recommendations to a conditional use that will change its engineered plan. So why submit an engineered plan if we're talking about going through a hearing process and then having members of the public during our outreach and the public hearing process recommend changes or board recommending changes and then having to go back and redo that. So we've created a linear process where you would do your conditional use and then your land development. We've also asked for the consideration that instead of proceeding forward with notification with certified mailings, which we have found to be problematic with recipients in abutting properties getting those because they get delivered in the middle of the day. And if they're at work, they can't receive the certified mail. or if it's to property where that person does not normally reside, or they work somewhere differently, they're not getting the notice. So in order to, again, save taxpayer time and applicant time and money, we're suggesting first class mailing, and that first class mailing going out to those who would be impacted within 100-foot radius. That's essentially the long and short of it with the conditional use section. I would like to ask the board if they had any questions regarding that before we move on to the other section, because everything else from that point on, we'll be talking more or less about definitions and the zoning districts as opposed to straight up administration. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Feel free to move forward. Go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, and again, I apologize. I know that this topic is quite dry, but it does help us in terms of administering and making sure that we get what we're looking for from our ordinance, which, you know, is also with all the planning work that we've done over the years. The definition section is really quite long. Instead of going through everything one by one, I'll just break it down quite simply. One, in our use matrix for many years, we've had uses such as bottling and packaging or light sheet metalworking, which have always been on the books as a use, but they weren't defined in our definitions section. So, for as benign as most of those uses are, and for as long as we've had them, we decided to add a definition to it. Same as with like a bank or financial institution. It's always been a regulated use. We never defined it. So we took the time at the staff level, and then also worked with the solicitor's office and township engineer and everybody looking at everything all together to make sure that the definitions are in a place where they're defensible and clear and as concise as possible. So essentially, the only two things that we did were add definitions that didn't exist before, or modify some existing definitions based off of recommendations from the township engineer's office, such as lot area, making sure that it matches saldo. By matching saldo, there's no room for misinterpretation. The two are one and the same: zoning and subdivision and land development code. And two, some of our other uses where we've either had applicants come to the zoning hearing board, or items that have gone into some form of litigation over the years where we wanted more clarity in that definition, so there was not room for misinterpretation in the future. It wouldn't impact items that are currently in process or previously, but moving forward would take care of the township. The definition section is quite long. So instead of going, like I said, instead of going through everything point by point, I would be happy to take any questions or comments that you might have on them. Or if you go home and you review this over the next couple of days and you think of something after the fact, please reach out to me and I'll get right back in touch with you, be able to answer your questions or take your feedback to see if we can't perfect it even further.
Any questions on any specific definitions for me? Okay, as Nate said, if you do come across something, please reach out to him directly, and he will entertain your questions and try to provide answers and explanations.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on then to the next portion that we've been considering here. Again, getting into the more administrative side of things, we are looking at our commercial districts, where we have seen, as I'm sure the board knows from the number of applications that have come in, a lot of interest from the development community. And one thing that here, again, based off of comments received from our administrative staff as we've pushed this along and looked at projects who have come before us, and there have been questions or concerns about how the language reads, we really tried to perfect a couple of items so that there was no room for misinterpretation. Clearly, one of the key items there, questions with respect to how buildings face the street. We've had this one over and over again. Our Hamilton Boulevard corridor plan and our other planning documents call for the boulevard to have a specific design set standard. We did the Lower Macungie design guidelines back in 18 and 19 to try and clear up any misinterpretation and really illustrate for people both our residents and those in the development community what the township was looking for with new development. There were still some questions that had come up even after we did all of those items. So we've tightened it up even more to make sure that it's clear that new buildings that come in for subdivision, land development, conditional use will face upon a public road. And that just means that we want the main entrance facing the street. There have been discussions in the past about doing treatments, and so that's happened with some of them. But this language would allow the zoning officer to clearly note in plans that have been submitted that the building, like all of our historic buildings and a number of our newer buildings, do need to face the road. In addition to that, we have found great success in the street walls. We do that for pedestrian safety. We also do it to block headlights from shining out onto the road. It makes it safer, especially starting in December through February, essentially, when you get into the afternoon and evening hours. So that has been cleared up in there. We did find people utilizing shrubs that were taking way too long to grow. So we have added that in, that we would like to see the street wall instead. If you're looking for a good example, the surgical rehab center on Mine Site is putting them in right now, and they look quite nice. As we go through each of the development districts, or I'm sorry, in each of the zoning districts through commercial, West Coastville, and highway, we are also looking for consistency in how language read. So for the notes, like all HVAC equipment up on top of a building should be screened from view from the street. We made sure that that language was the same for each district because we felt consistency helps. And we know that one, the board likes consistency. Two, we like to be able to have consistency when we're enacting and basically administering the ordinance. With that, they're really, in terms of, again, the zoning districts, we did not change any uses. We did not change any of the boundaries. It was really about taking care of areas where there could be questions for interpretation. So that's really the length and breadth of it, was some of these notes and some of the regulatory matters to make sure that if there is a question moving forward, it's crystal clear that there's the expectation that buildings will face the street, that HVAC and elevator equipment will be screened from view. Very basic items such as that. Happy to take any questions, but beyond that, we have felt that the commercial district zones that I listed have been working very well as applications have come in.
Any questions on this, the changes in this section? Yes, Commissioner Robert?
Okay, these comments sort of blend across a couple of sections, but figured bring it up now. That in the residential zones, in one place it specifies that the maximum height of the monument sign can be 6 feet. In another place, it specifies that the maximum height could be 8 feet. Now in the 8-foot one, it does indicate for large developments, but large developments is not defined. So it ought to either be made consistent or a clearer delineation between the two ought to be made.
And is this in the sign section, Commissioner Robert? Because we're about to talk about that.
Is this the sign section or the district sections?
It's the district section that covers the non-commercial zones.
I understand what you're saying. Yes. So that's actually the residential and industrial districts are part of the next package that's coming in before you after this one. So the signage district, I guess what you're saying is in the residential district, now that we're making the change, you're talking about the cross reference. Yes.
I think it's what he's talking about is the clarity between what is considered a large residential development versus a non-large resident. There's no specification for the difference between a 6-foot and an 8-foot sign.
Yeah, I think what we'll do then is we'll probably remove that because again, we're in the position where we don't want to have room for any interpretation other than what's as most clear and concise as possible. So we'll probably just pick one and go with that. That matches what we have in the science district right now when we do the cross-referencing.
Okay, next item is in the sign area, and early on in the ordinance, there were modifications to eliminate calling it a landscaped island, and substituting in other words, but then in the sections that appear in red in the sign portion of the ordinance, it still refers to the landscaped island, so there ought to be consistency between what that decorative planting around the sign should be.
Sure. I
And
know
then-
that there are questions sometimes from applicants on what it's specifically called, but if you'd like consistency with that language, we can certainly just do a quick switch in terms of that for consistency purposes.
Yeah, whatever it is, it ought to be consistent, that's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Nate, did you
Well,
want
with
that here with landscaping or the south up there?
so we're really just focusing on the zoning aspect of it right now. When we open that, I think we're going to have discussions on it, but you know, this is the book that's open right now, right? So
Well, I think the question arises from, there is a section in red in one of these areas that crosses out island and puts in, planting bed. In terms
yeah.
of,
Mhm.
so as long as it's the same across everything, make sure that we're just cross-referencing so that it's the same across each section.
Yeah, we want planting bed
Right,
instead of
Yeah.
landscape lot.
Yeah,
right.
we're gonna go with planting bed. Yep.
And then what I think is the most significant, this is also in the sign portion. There are several places where it makes reference to, there's only one sign allowed along one street. But if it's at the intersection of two streets, in one place, it says there can be one sign on each street. But the verbiage in most of the places where it appears say there can be, I read it as there can be two signs on each street. So that I view as an actual error that should be corrected.
Maureen, why don't we talk offline on that? Because I know that that language is something that I work very closely with Vince, Chris, and Mark on. So we wanted to, it's actually an item that has come up multiple times as of late, where we wanted to ensure that there was one sign per frontage, and then we had some corner lots. So we wanted to ensure that if you were on a corner lot, there would be able to be two. So if we could talk offline to see where you feel that that is reading that, I will highlight that, and I'd like to actually send it to the group as well to see what they have to say about it.
There is one place where it explicitly says there can be one on each street. But in most of the sign portion of the ordinance, it refers to two signs. And it is not clear that it is just one per street. It could be two on each street. As the.
All right, again, I'll circle back on that because that was an item that we were very careful with. So I'll see where it is. If you can, I will email you and ask for the specific area where you're seeing it, and we can tighten that up if that is an issue. Speaking of the signs, I mean, we jumped into some comments there, and I thank you for that because I have a note on it here. I'll be able to email the team first thing, actually probably after we finish meeting tonight, so we can discuss it tomorrow. For the benefit of the board and those watching from home, a number of the changes that did occur with signs were based off of the number of permits that we're issuing with signs. I would note that one of the issues that continuously occurs with signage is a question as to how many signs are allowed on the face of one building, similar to what Commissioner Robert just brought up. And we did tighten that language up because there was a question of if I could have 10 on the side of the building, but it met the square footage. And we cleared it up, making it very crystal clear that you can have your one main sign and then a second sign on the side of a building. Because there was a question that both Mr. Tranguch and Mr. Russo were consistently getting from people in trying to be able to put multiple signs on the face of a structure in commercial zones. So we did clear that language up. Another item that consistently came up was ensuring that our on-premise freestanding signs did have the architectural and the design guideline elements that we were looking for. So that language was strengthened. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's one of those monument signs, which are the larger, more elaborate signs that generally go at the entrance of a commercial development, or in some cases, new residential developments, be them small or large, but these are generally more for commercial purposes. We tightened up that language as well. We ensured that our language consistently has always talked about the illumination of signs and the allowance for the illumination of signs. And we ensured that signs that are both lit by bulb as well as any LED signs or LED billboards where they are permitted, which is in the Highway Enterprise District facing Route 78, that the usage of dimming or dimming software is employed, so that if I'm driving by at midnight or 1 a.m, the intensity of the light is not as bright as it is during the day. You drive down the road. It's like basically driving down the road with high beams flashing at you, essentially for the signs. So employing the use of the dimming software for digital signs, or a dimmer for more traditional lighting, is now called out in the ordinance here. We did talk about in numerous sections the usage of digital LED within a monument sign for schools and churches. A number of those types of projects have come before the zoning hearing board with the specifics from a place of worship or a school with the desire to put in a digital LED element that talks about events or services or the start of school. So we just made sure that that was tightened up so we would be able to utilize that. Our monument signs, we got rid of the word stucco and put in other masonry related material, because we found that there have been some issues with the stucco signs, and the intent now is to hopefully stick with brick, stone, or other masonry materials, and not the stucco from inspections, which we found to be an issue. We did talk about signs that are not permitted. This has been more frequent as of late, and then some of our peer communities have had to deal with it too. But we're talking about the large inflatable balloon advertising pieces, some that move, some that stay stationary, some that are in the shape of a character or a building. But we wanted to make it abundantly clear that those are prohibited and not allowed. That's been a violation issue that we've been dealing with. And then beyond that, again, as I noted, it's really about just making sure that we were trying to get consistency across a number of the zones. Again, I thank Commissioner Robert for his comment. I'm going to look into that a little bit further here and see exactly what he's noting and what we can do to tighten it up even more. Again, the intent here is to make sure that we could administer the ordinance as clearly and concisely as possible, to hopefully have less appeal applications, and also make it clear when we're doing enforcement what the will of the board and the township is. So if anybody has any other further comments about signage, I'm happy to take them. Maury, I have yours, and I'm going to look into them right after we get off the meeting.
The one that Maury's talking about, because I see it too, it's section 27-2215-1E as in Edward. There's just a word missing. It's the same as the others. It just makes it sound like you could put 2 monument signs on each street as opposed to 1 on each street. So that's
Okay.
But that's just, if there's the one is missing, as in like each street instead of two on each street.
And there are several of those.
Yeah, but that's the one that I see, so. It's just, there's a word missing, that's all.
Okay. I made a note of that. Thank you for that. That'll save me some time. The last section, very simple, similar to signage. We deal with it regularly, is parking, especially when someone's coming in for a fit out. Essentially, the general parking regulations that we have in place have been put in place for a number of years for, a lot of focus on new development. And now, of course, we're seeing redevelopment occur. I think one of the first things that is important to note is we did adopt the ITE design standards for requirement for parking spaces. So it wasn't arbitrary. It's based off of peak hours. We did that back in 18 and 19. What we're looking at now is taking that, and it's in process, and it is arduous, but we're turning it into a matrix similar to the use matrix. And basically that will allow the township engineer, the department director, myself, our zoning officer, yourselves as commissioners, anybody to applicants or residents to look at the matrix and know exactly what they need to put in for parking, as opposed to adhering to the ITE manual, which not many people have a copy of handy at their home office, or even in some cases in their professional office if they're not a traffic engineer. So that's something that we're simplifying for everybody right now. It'll be an exhibit, just like our use matrix and our zoning map, when we hopefully adopt this. In addition, we did want to make sure, because this has come up with tent sales in season, we do know that people do store inventory in parking lots. Not a problem. A lot of our businesses do it. We just want to make sure that the required parking spaces that are necessary are still available. So that's just making sure that the zoning officer has the ability to enforce that. The zoning officer also has the ability, if someone's doing a pretty large scale change of use, to require stamped and sealed registered design professional plans with a parking design if they're making major changes at the site with a fit out. However, if it's something smaller, the language does give them through the ability for the zoning officer to make a determination to say, no, you just need to show me where 4 more spaces are going on at the site. This is language that was basically put in to make it clear that if you are really redeveloping a site through the fit out process, but not going through conditional use or land development, that we get a plan. But if a new store is coming into an existing storefront, that could be a pretty bad hardship for a small local business owner. So we just wanted to clear that up. Again, going with the parking spaces, one of the very important items that we have dealt with from an enforcement perspective has been the parking of very large commercial and industrial vehicles on public and private rights of way and public and private property. That's a complaint that we've received fairly often. So we've made it clear as part of this language, which should be helpful for enforcement, that vehicles over 5 tons are unable to park on a public or private right of way in the rural, AP, semi-rural, suburban, Hills at Lockridge overlay, commercial Spring Creek, ETV 1, 2, or 3, our urban zone, the West Coastville district, the commercial district, and the highway commercial districts. And the reasons for that is again, we've been dealing with issues of enforcement with prolonged parking of very large commercial vehicles that we are trying to enforce. So that language on number 11 on page 3 of the parking section clarifies that, which will help us during enforcement. The other items of note that I think are important, we did finally determine that for every parking lot of at least 50 spaces, there will be 1 electrical vehicle charging station. Additional electrical vehicle charging stations will be provided at a rate of 1 per every 50 additional spaces after that. There was a question about clarity with that language, so we cleared that up. I would like to throw some props Mark Fisher's way. He did help us write that language with the Planning Commission to make sure that there was no misinterpretation from applicants when that came in in terms of the number of electrical charging stations that would be necessary with the new development. Again, requiring oil separators in industrial districts, it's common sense. We just put it into the ordinance. I did mention the 3-foot masonry street wall. Again, that is to ensure that bright augmented lights, which most vehicles have these days, aren't shooting out onto the streets. So again, not to go into too many greater details, but we just wanted to ensure that from an enforcement point, both during the permitting process, but also during conditional use or land development, we had the language that we needed to be able to make sure that we were enforcing things the right way. Same thing with root systems of trees going into parking lots, which have buckled curb and pavement. We just have that now in zoning as well as our other ordinance language to make sure that that doesn't happen during the process. And getting the streetscape design standards that we adopted those years ago really memorialized, and not just a suggestion, but the expectation as part of the ordinance. So any questions on parking, I'm happy to answer those as well. But that's really the long and short of what we achieved with the administrative work there.
Any questions on parking? Okay, don't see any, Nate.
Great, thank you. So that's it. That's the first package. We wanted to make sure that that was just administrative stuff and not land use policy related items that would change uses, change the map, change larger issues. This is really, like I said, had to do with enforcement. So in the coming days, if you have any questions, again, please reach out to me, Commissioner Robert. I'm going to look into the points that you made, but we are looking to perfect this and try and get it enacted as quickly as we can so that we have that tool in our tool belt ready to be used as permits keep coming into office for us. So if you have any other questions, please let me know offline. Otherwise, I don't want to take up more of anybody's time tonight.
Thanks, Nate.
Bruce, do you have timing on when this is gonna go?
I'd like to move this forward if Nathan can get those revisions, get any more feedback. I know Commissioner Robert will make sure that language is kind of hammered out. You'll be in the office next Monday, Tuesday, right, Nathan?
Yeah, I mean, my plan is to have this all done as quickly as possible, if not tomorrow. So
Well, you can't take action yet, just because we had it listed as just kind of an update topic, so we have some additional work for, solicitor to get that ready, so that you're good to go, but we're ready to move.
The
with that.
legal notice is gonna be a little bit of a challenge.
Yeah,
Mark and I have talked about it, but
do you think,
we'll meet whatever schedule, we'll be fine.
do you think the first October meeting or the second October meeting would be, potentially?
As long as the public notice lines up.
Okay, so we'll take the comments, we'll get revisions back out to everybody. If you have any other concerns, let Nate know. We'll have legal start getting everything they need on their end. We'll check the notice. We can't do the notice for the first meeting. We'll look to do the notice for the second meeting in October. Would be my tentative time frame.
Then we have to have a hearing.
Nate, if you want to contact me, use my personal email account, not my Lomac account.
you got it, sir.
All right, are there any other departmental updates? Doug, anything from you? Anything specific?
Just an update, Quarry Park Playground, form play was installed, the asphalt was installed this week. Landscaping will start next week and getting close to grand opening.
Excellent. That looks good. Looks really good. All right, 12.2 engineering, Mr. McAdam.
Nothing to report tonight.
Any questions for the engineer? 12.3 solicitor Broman.
I too have nothing to report tonight.
Okay, any questions from the solicitors? By the way, this is not like the Emmys. I'm not giving money to Boys and Girls Club if you go short. Because Nate just basically, he took care of everybody. We're in the negative at this point.
I think you wanted me to take those minutes. You're gonna have to create a synopsis for that.
I got one question.
Yes,
sir.
Mr. Frederick.
And I didn't bring it up with Nate because it's the same issue. The charging stations, there's people having battles to get into them. And I got a phone call, and after this individual presented his full case on how a neighbor is going to a business and leaves his car there charging all the time, I informed him that's South White Rock. It's nothing to do with Lower Mac. But I don't know if you ran into that, or, but my response
Is it a
was
commercial facility that?
a commercial
opens it up?
facility that a neighbor's parking, charging an electric car there, and I don't think there's nothing we can do to
No,
address
Well,
that.
The one thing that.
But it was South Whitehall, that was my out.
The one thing that they did change in the ordinance was, it used to be that it was 75 parking spaces for one
Charging
electric,
station.
one charger,
Right,
and it's now 50 parking spaces for one charger.
right. I was at the meeting, and that was a lot of discussion on the number of charging stations per spaces. And
That was that was that night of that workshop. I would say that was our most talked about topic, was finding the right number and finding the right ratios, because of the recognition of how much people are utilizing them. So
anyway, just
Well, the planning commission had recommended 50 before, but then the
Yeah.
commissioner's up to 75.
but
stick with gas.
and
Okay,
I responded, yeah, anything north of Potomac is South Whitehall.
very true.
They like to call Lower Mac.
We respond. That's it.
I
We're so approachable.
got a public number.
Okay, Township Manager, Mr. Byer.
All right, I will try not to be long-winded. Just to update the board on a couple of things we're working on that we'll need you to consider action on. With the retirement of Mr. Waltmeyer, our finance director, coming soon here on the 13th of October. It's necessary that we have our new finance director in waiting, Ms. Dobson, be named township treasurer. Township code requires that we have a township treasurer. It's currently Jeff as the finance director. So we'll have something prepared so that you gentlemen consider her to that position. I would note, the first class code requires that be an employee, not an elected official. And it has been in the past history that it's always been the finance director. So we'll have that component. Also, with that, we have a cash management investment fund, CRIM, that we use through Fulton Bank. It's necessary that we update those signatures on there. It's currently Jeff's in there, and we'll need to put Ms. Dobson and myself on there. So it takes an official recognition of the board to make sure that we're authorized to sign. If anybody would have anybody else they would want to be on that as a signatory, that's more of an investment fund. We're not writing checks and things of that nature out of that account. So the other item, once again, we are part of, in the a lot of years ago, changed to have municipalities the ability to collect earned income tax. Now at the county level, one association. There is the Lehigh County Tax Collection Committee. They are responsible for the hiring of the tax collector, which in this case is a Berkheimer, for earned income taxes. That has a board that I currently sit on as a vice chairperson, and then it's delegates from both school districts and as well as municipalities. We have to have one primary delegate. We need one alternate delegate. Jeff is the alternate delegate at this point, so we're going to ask the board to reaffirm my position as the main delegate and have Ms. Dobson as the alternate. So by all means, if anybody wants to be the primary delegate, that I can't get anybody to do, I'd be more than happy to give that up. But that'll be the next package, all related to transition of staffing, and we'll get in a good spot with that. So that's 12, 4, 1 to 3. 12, 4, 4, we've talked about on numerous occasions. The solicitor's office had that draft copy of the operational agreement for the pump station, future pump station at Hartstown Road. We've circulated that to Lehigh County Authority to see if they had any adjustments to the draft language. The authority did provide some feedback, mostly about us notifying each other so that they don't cancel on us without us knowing, and the township has the ability to give additional notice in case either, the township or LCA misses it, we're not stuck stranded. The solicitor's office is working on that update language. The authority, knowing that the head of the authority, she can actually, is allowed to amend certain agreements, with basic text changes like this. She has it on her board agenda meeting for the next, LCA board to consider. So they will be, approving with those minor, conditions. So unless there's any, issues with the board, and that arrangement to have them kind of manage that for us, I should have that to you for the 1st October meeting, so.
Anything else?
Those are the key items that I have, unless there's questions or anything, any updates on projects. We are continuing to work on the budget. We will have that draft out. I'm still working on my end before the internal review. We'll put that package together and get that out to the board. The 8th is our first meeting for the budget. And I'll have packets probably early in that week. I know we're working with Doug on a fleet master plan. We have our long range stormwater pipe replacement plan for the next 5 years. That's also completed. So I think it'll be a pretty good, pretty accurate depiction of what we have going on out there. So I'll keep everyone posted, but we'll get that to you as soon as possible, so you have time to review that out.
Any other questions for the manager? Okay, is there any, that's different. Okay, other business, is there any unfinished business to discuss tonight? That's a whole change to the agenda, that messes with my head. Okay, seeing none. Board of Commissioner reports, there is no September workshop since we just had it 5 minutes ago. The next regular board meeting is October 2nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. Hopefully back in the building.
Hopefully back in the main building.
Budget workshops are scheduled for Wednesday, October 8th and Wednesday, October 22nd. If needed, October 29th and November 5th, all will be held at 6 p.m. The 3rd edition of Coffee with the Commissioners will be this Saturday here in the building at 9 o'clock. Feel free to stop by and ask any questions. We've already had some very good questions and some traction on some of them. That one that was even done before I even brought it up, so that was even better. There was no executive session prior to or after tonight's meeting, and with that, we are adjourned.